Hi, Chris Johnson, CEO of the Urban Taskforce. Sydney does have amazing housing crisis. Prices are up, supply is down. We really need to do something dramatic. So we've produced this issue of Urban Ideas magazine, and we've titled it Actions to Help Solve Sydney's Housing Crisis. We believe that it is in a very difficult stage and something has to be done. So we've analysed just where the world sits in terms of this crisis. Here are a series of graphs and charts, and I'll go into each of them individually to explain what the issue is. The first one I want to look at is by a group called Demographia. They look at housing affordability around the world, and they have a chart that lists number one as the least affordable in this world is Hong Kong. Number two, surprisingly, is Sydney. Number three, Vancouver, and number four is Auckland. So Sydney is in a very unaffordable situation. It has 12.2 times the average household income each year required to buy the average house. It's not a good situation, and it's not getting better. Here is a graph by Demographia showing the middle income housing affordability. The red line is Sydney. Below that you can see Melbourne, and then the other states well below. What this shows is the dip happened in 2009-10, the time of the GFC. So by 2011 it was picking up again. But it has gone from a ratio of about 8 to 1 up now to over 12 to 1. So Sydney's housing affordability is getting worse all the time. This is now a chart that shows the average price of an apartment and an average price of a house. This is from the domain section, and if you look in the column on the left hand side, you'll see Sydney's average price of an apartment is $711,000, Melbourne's $459,000, and Brisbane's $358,000. If we look at the houses column on the right hand side, Sydney has an average house price of $1.123 million, Melbourne way down $795,000, and Brisbane $540,000, half that of Sydney. So there are clearly big differences between the states. But the final graph I want to show about where we are at the moment is the new monthly private sector home approvals in New South Wales. Because if we need supply to be up, we need to monitor where we are. What this graph shows, the orange at the top, is the total number of homes has dropped by about 26% in the last 6 months of 2016. The purple line below that are the apartments. They're dropping very fast. And the blue is the houses, only slightly. So the trend is not good for Sydney. What can we do? Well, the first thing we did is ask our members if they had projects caught up in the housing system. And surprisingly, we've got this very long list of projects caught up in the system itself. If we go through these fairly quickly, you'll see they range from Wilton to Schofields to Auburn to Granville to Epping to Chatswood, Carlton, Macquarie Park, St Leonard's, French's Forest, Parramatta, Parkley, Marrickville, Leichhardt. They're all over the place, St Leonard's. This comes to a total of 49,393 homes, and so we put these on this map here. So you can see this is the total of nearly 50,000 homes caught up in the planning system. The quickest way to get supply up is to unlock these projects as soon as possible. So the various items we've raised, 10 of them as action items, we think the New South Wales government needs to take. Here they are. Number one. So number one is looking at the issue of housing projects caught up in the planning system, which must be fast-tracked. But the image on this shows Auckland. Auckland, which you may recall was number 4 in the most unaffordable houses, has a lot of projects caught up in their planning system. A special group's been set up to drive change, fast-track projects, and lo and behold, they're getting a lot more projects happening, including affordable housing. Number 2, I've indicated here, is to use government-owned land to build significant amounts of affordable housing. Government owns lots of land. They need to build the affordable housing and not just maximise their land sale price to get this to work. The map shows the Community Pluses projects. There are 5 you can see on there, which are where government-owned land is being developed with both private sector market homes and with affordable homes. The third item is to update the affordable rental housing SEP to provide 40,000 affordable homes over 10 years. We've put this out before, and you can see the front of our document talking about the 40,000 homes. It's an incentive-based process to get more affordable homes. Add 20% to the volume, floor space of a building and to the height, and that 20% can be used for affordable homes rented for a 10-year period. Then they go back into the marketplace. Number 4 is to remove anti-housing zoning in centres and on industrial land. The district plans recently brought out have now made it much more difficult to build housing in district centres and strategic centres and in employment zones, including industrial lands. This is just the wrong approach at the wrong time. We need to encourage rather than discourage housing in these zones. The 5th is to remove excessive cost-adding standards to SEP 65 in CBD areas. This is about apartment design standards. We support quality buildings, of course, but they do add a lot of cost. In Melbourne, a study was done by a local architect, Craig Yalen, showed that $145,000 extra would be added to a Melbourne apartment if the SEP 65 standards in New South Wales and Sydney were applied. Number 6, establish a one-stop shop to speed up referrals to government agencies on housing projects. The big projects all get caught up being referred to state government agencies like Roads and Maritime Services and Transport, and they add a lot of time to it. In Queensland, they have a group called SARA, S-A-R-A, State Assessment Referral Authority, who drive change and it becomes much quicker. Number 7, restructure the planning proposal process to support changing environments. A fairly recent document came out in September in 2016, but it strengthens the whole process of defining strategic merit. What's happening is the planning panels are now rejecting proposal after proposal because of this tighter definition. We have to open this up. 8, develop a complying code for 6-storey apartments with quick approvals. Project we put out before, this is the cover of the magazine. Up to 6 stories, we think quick complying development make these happen quicker. 9, ensure value capture and infrastructure contributions do not stop housing for projects. A lot of effort is going into governments at local, state and federal to try to get extra cost from developers. They call it value capture, value sharing, special contributions, all sorts of words, but it is increasing dramatically, and this is only going to increase the cost of housing. Finally, number 10, we believe we should support stamp duty reforms, get them lower, institutional funding for affordable housing, just like many other countries have, where it's become an asset class that is a worthwhile one. On the final wrap-up then, on the cover, I've listed these 10 items, and I'll just quickly reiterate what each of them is. Number 1, fast-track housing projects caught in the planning system, just follow Auckland's lead. Nothing new here, we're just following what someone else has suggested. 2, use government-owned land to drive affordable housing. Follow Victoria's lead. Victoria's already done this. Update 3, update the affordable rental housing SEP to follow the lead of the existing policy. It's already sitting there. 4, remove restrictive anti-housing zoning. Just follow Melbourne and Brisbane. That's what they do. 5, remove excessive cost-adding standards for apartments. Again, follow Melbourne's lead. They haven't adopted those excessive standards. 6, establish a one-stop shop for agency referrals. Queensland have done it. Follow them. 7, restructure the planning proposal process. Go back to the previous rules. 8, complying code for 6-storey apartments. Follow the lead of Barcelona and Paris. 9, ensure value capture is under control. Look at London's Crossrail, where they have not used value capture to lift housing prices. And 10, support stamp duty reform institutional funding. Canada has set up a big institutional funding for affordable homes. So all of these need to be undertaken. We think action is needed now. It's clearly a crisis. Let's get moving.